Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm reviewing the documentary One More Time with Feeling. This was directed by Andrew Dominik, who'd done the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford and Chopper. This documentary is about Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and it originally started out as a documentary about them making their new album called Skeleton Tree. But due to a tragic circumstances while filming, the film took on a much more powerful, tragic sort of beauty. And it really looks at how this tragedy has shaped Nick Cave and his wife and the band themselves. It really looks at how tragedy that they do face is their son, Arthur, dies during the filming of this documentary. And the film just then takes on such a more poetic feel to it. Everything sort of means something. Everything that's said and photographed is much more powerful in that, but due to the tragic events that transpired. And what starts out as just a normal documentary about a band making an album evolves into something much more deep and inspiring in a way. Throughout the documentary, it's shot in black and white, and it's beautifully shot and very interestingly made. And Andrew Dominik, who's an Australian filmmaker, has done a really wonderful job here in capturing the moments that transpired during the making of the album and the tragedy that did happen during the filming of this documentary. It really goes into Nick Cave, and he talks about not necessarily the tragedy of the death of his son, but the impact that's having on him, and him struggling to find meaning in things and points to things. And he throws himself into his work, creating this album, and knowing the backstory of what has transpired while this album is being made gives the songs much more power. There's a tragic beauty to the songs. They're poetic. They're his way of trying to deal with what's happened, to try and put how he feels into words. Not necessarily explaining everything within those words, but the words he does use and the songs that he does make and how that affects him and how he uses that to deal with the tragedy he's gone through. There's a great moment in there where he talks about him and his wife decided they made a decision to be happy. So even though they went through this tragedy of losing their son, they made a conscious decision to try and be happy, to still live life even with this happening. It looks at life and death and how when someone close to you dies, it shapes you and transforms you in a way you can't explain. You become a different person to the person you were prior to that incident or prior to that death. It's something that you can't explain to someone. You can't articulate. You can't put it into words or describe it to anybody. And only people who've been through it can understand it. It's a journey you go through. It shapes you, it changes you. You look at the world in a different way. It's something you never forget, but you learn to live with and accept that this has happened. And then you start to live your life again, but in a different way, as if your eyes have been opened to different things, and how that shapes you as a person. And the strangeness of that person that's passed away not being there anymore, and your realization of that and how that affects you. Throughout the documentary, they ask him particular questions, and you can tell that he's struggling to articulate how he feels and thinks, even down to writing the songs. And he sort of critiques himself through the documentary about there's a particular scene where he's playing the piano and he can't get it right, or he's trying to sing and he talks about how he knew his voice wasn't right and needed to practice a bit more before he got into the studio. He's a very prolific, I think, and powerful writer, and that comes out in his lyrics and his songs. There's a poetry to it that sort of comes out, which is magnificent in the songs, but there's also moments where he's reading something he's written and it goes over particular photos. Just the way it's put together and completely shooting it in black and white gives it a unique and interesting feel. There is one scene that's shot in colour, and that's a really sort of powerful scene, and it's a coloured particular song that's being played, but there's a spirituality to it. There's a power to this song that Nick Cave is singing and the Bad Seeds are playing that just, I don't know, this has a powerful effect, I guess. I think this film transcends in a lot of ways. It transcends the basic idea of a documentary about a band into something so more breathtaking and beautiful, even in the tragic circumstances around it. It is one of the best documentaries I've seen, and I was very thoroughly impressed with it. And it's in my top 10 of best documentary of all time. I just think it's brilliant. I hadn't seen anything quite like it. There's a power to it. It captivates you. It draws you in, and you experience what he experiences, and the band experiences, and his wife experiences in a way, and it's so powerful. And I've said it a few times, but this thing is ultimately poetically, tragically beautiful. It's just so well done. I was so impressed and so transfixed by it. I've never been a huge fan of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, but this gave me a whole new appreciation for the band and the man himself. Final verdict. If you like a really solid, interesting documentaries, this is definitely worth your time. If you're a fan of Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, you might enjoy this as well. And if you want something that's completely different, that transcends the basic idea of a documentary about a band making an album, this is definitely for you. I don't know if it'll be for everyone, but it had a real deep impact on me. And it's a documentary that stuck with me long after I viewed it, and it's still with me, and it's such a wonderful documentary that's so beautifully made and articulated and presented to an audience. Look, I'm going to give this film 4.5 out of 5. I thought it was brilliant. It was very well done. Like I said, one of the best documentaries I've seen. And I look forward to seeing some more documentaries that come out. And this is something I want to start doing, is reviewing documentaries as well, because I think that there are some really, really great documentaries out there. And there may be some documentaries people are unaware of, and I think more people should be seeing these sort of things. Anyway, that's all from me today. If you've enjoyed what you've heard here, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.